thank God for the lighthouse. Lord, I owe my life to Him. You see, Jesus is the lighthouse. And from the rock to sin, and shone His light of love around me. And I really see just what it wasn't for the lighthouse. Tell me where was my defeat? In the book of 2 Corinthians. Word of exhortation. Precious God, we ask that you would bless the reading of the word as we come before you. In Jesus' name. Numbers chapter 17, verses 1. And read.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and take of every one of them a rod according to the house of their fathers, of all their princes according to the house of their fathers, 12 rods. Write thou every man's name upon his rod. And thou shalt write Aaron's name upon the rod of Levi, for one rod shall be for the head of the house of their fathers. And thou shalt lay them up in the tabernacle of the congregation before the testimony, where I will meet with you. And it shall come to pass that the man's rod, whom I shall choose, shall blossom. And I will make to cease from me the murmurings of the children of Israel, whereby they murmur against you. And Moses spake unto the children of Israel, and every one of their princes gave him a rod apiece, for each prince one, according to their fathers' houses, even 12 rods. And the rod of Aaron was among their rods. And Moses laid up the rods before the Lord in the tabernacle of witnesses. And it came to pass that on the morrow Moses went into the tabernacle of witness, and behold, the rod of Aaron for the house of Levi was budded, and brought forth buds, and bloomed blossoms, and yielded almonds. And Moses brought out all the rods from before the Lord unto all the children of Israel. And they looked, and took every man his rod. And the Lord said unto Moses, Bring Aaron's rod again before the testimony, to be kept for a token against the rebels. And thou shalt quite take away their murmurings from me, and they die not. And Moses did so, as the Lord commanded him, so did he. And the children of Israel spake unto Moses, saying, Behold, we die, we perish, we all perish. Whosoever cometh anything near unto the tabernacle of the Lord shall die. Shall we be consumed with dying?
Church, amen. 2 Corinthians chapter 10. And verse 12.
For we dare not make ourselves of the number, or compare ourselves with some that commend themselves. But they, measuring themselves by themselves, and comparing themselves among themselves, are not wise. But we will not boast of things without our measure, but according to the measure of the rule which God hath distributed to us, a measure to reach even unto you. For we stretch not ourselves beyond our measure, as though we reach not unto you. For we are come as far as to you also in preaching the gospel of Christ. Not boasting of things without our measure, that is, of other men's labors, but having hope, when your faith is increased, that we shall be enlarged by you, according to our rule abundantly, to preach the gospel of the regions beyond you, and not to boast in another man's line of things made ready to our hand. But he that glorieth, let him glory in the Lord.
And emphasis is on verse 18.
For not he that commendeth himself is approved, but whom the Lord commendeth.
Church say amen. You're going to have the Lord. So that is a statement in the scripture that we should always remember. You may look like, or someone may look like the man or the person for the job, but it don't mean that they are. Someone may feel as though they can do a better job and that they're the one, but it doesn't mean that they are. For not he that commendeth himself is approved, but it's whom the Lord commendeth. See, when you exalt yourself, you're bound to come down. When you exalt yourself, you're on your own, and with whatever has exalted you. When it fails, you fall. But when God commends you, he backs you. When God commends you, he establishes you. When God commends you, what God does, no man can take from it nor add to it. It will stand when you trust in him. The book of Numbers was dealing with the sons of Korah. They were rulers with the children of Israel. But they decided that God not only could speak to Aaron and Moses, but God could talk to them as well. Because you may hear the voice of God, because you may know the voice of God, doesn't give you the right to exalt yourself without the Lord. Because you hear the voice of God and you know the voice of God doesn't make you necessarily special. Because he said his sheep should know his voice. We must learn to walk with the gifts of God, in the gifts of God, with humility, and not allow the things that God may do on our behalf and in his name to cause us to exalt ourselves above measure. These men went up to Moses and Aaron and they confronted them saying that, listen, God speaks to us too. Now, people, you must understand, because you hear from God, that doesn't eliminate others from hearing from God. You understand what I'm saying? Absolute virtue. And Moses and Aaron suggested to them that they had gone a little bit too far. You sons of Korah, are not you rulers among many princes? Do not you stand strong in the midst of the congregation? Your families are families of reputation. He said, don't you think you're going a little bit too far? Aren't you satisfied with what God has given you? Aren't you satisfied with the blessings and the things and the position that God has put you in? So after they left Aaron and Moses, Aaron sent for them. And Moses, they said to the brethren, tell them to come so that we can reason. We can talk about it. And of course, they refused to come. Who is this Moses and Aaron? We hear from God like them. And since we hear from God, we don't need them to tell us anything. You know, the church is called the body of Christ. And to say, because you feel like God is with you, you don't need the body, is a wrong statement. Because the feet need the toes, and the hands need the finger. The face needs the eyes, the nose, and the mouth to be complete. And you need the body. Well, Moses told them to bring their censers and burn their censers and incense, and God would choose which one is which. Of course, Aaron came out on top. Then he prayed a prayer, and Korah and his people were swallowed up in an earthquake because of their rebellion. People got upset after they saw God go forth with judgment, and they said to Aaron and Moses, you all had the people of God killed. Don't be so quick to speak against things that you don't know the facts. Don't be so quick to judge the hand of God, unless you find yourself standing against God. Don't be so quick to speak judgment in the name of God, understanding that you reap what you sow, and what measures you meet shall be measured to you again. And God saw this. And God said, listen, I know my people. And God says, I know who it is that I choose to do whatever it is I need them to do. The lesson that he was trying to teach them is this. God can speak for himself. And whatever God chooses and whoever God chooses, he will support them and make it known. When God has something for you to do, or when God is blessing you or directing you, no need to allow the beggarly elements of this world to get a hold of you, become jealous or envious or feeling as though you're not able to fulfill it. If he give it to you, then he'll help you and see you through. That's when you begin to take things into your own hand, when you allow your inferiorities to kick in and your selfish ambitions. When God anointed Jeroboam, he had a beautiful beginning. When the kingdom was divided after the death of Solomon, God gave Jeroboam the larger part of the tribes. He honored him. And Jeroboam, he was good and courageous until he got in office. And when he got in office, he said to himself, though he was in charge of the 10 northern tribes of Israel, the temple, the Ark of the Covenant, and the holy place was still in the south, in Judah, Jerusalem. And Jeroboam said to himself, now, if the people go down there and worship, they won't come back. Now, son, God just given you 10 tribes. He said, if you will be righteous and walk upright, he will bless you and your seed forever. And you will rule over the majority of the chosen people. But sometimes we change when prosperity kicks in. Sometimes we change when it seems like good fortune comes our way. Sometimes we change when it seems as though we now have the upper hand. It's amazing how humble we can walk until the day of blessing. And Jeroboam changed. His inferiorities kicked in. His insecurities kicked in. Now you see why sometimes we lose our blessing. God blesses us, but because of the flaws in our own hearts, we can ruin our own blessings. And Jeroboam became threatened. So he said to himself, if the people go down there to worship, they won't come back. His insecurity kicked in. So he made 2 images, one in Dan and one in Samaria. And he said, behold your gods. And he kept the people from going to Jerusalem, and he caused Israel to sin. And he was blessed of God. He had it all. But his insecurities kicked in, and he began to commend and exalt himself, not believing that God was able to sustain him and to keep him and to bless him. So he took it into his own hands. When you take it into your own hands, you will come out with idols. And everybody that follows you, you will cause them to sin. So God told Moses, take the rod of Aaron and talk to the children of Israel. You want a rod from every chief prince of the tribe of Israel. 1 rod for each tribe. Total of 12 rods. And put the names on the rods. For Aaron, put Levi on there. And put the names of their fathers. For the tribe of Reuben, put Reuben on there. Put the names on the rods. And bring me all 12 rods and put them in the tabernacle of witness, in the tabernacle. God said, now, in the morning, the rod that will have brought forth life, flowers, buds, that's the one I have chosen to represent the people of God. God said, then will I stop the mouth of the rebels. Sometimes it's not in us defending ourselves. Sometimes we talk too much. But when you know what you know, and if you know that God has spoken to you for sure, and you know that God is with you for sure, sometimes you just need to hold your peace and let the Lord fight your battles. Sometimes you just need to keep it quiet and let God speak for you, because if he's for you, he will speak in your behalf. They put the rods in the tabernacle. And all of Israel waited that night to see what God would do. And in the morning when Moses went back, only the rod of Aaron had given life. Not only did it bring forth buds and life flowers, it brought forth almonds. He brought the rod out, and Aaron's rod was full of life and almonds, buds and budded. You see, when God steps in, he leaves no space for doubt. See, when God speaks, you become speechless. This is why he said that sometimes when you are confronted, he says, don't worry about what you will say. He said, the Holy Ghost will give you words of wisdom that will stop the mouth of the gainsayers. Sometimes we need to say, Lord, speak for me, that you may stop the mouth.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Of the gainsayers.
Thank you, Lord Jesus.
Stop the mouth of the accusers. I feel a virtue. It seems like the more I talk, the more I get deeper into it. The more I talk, the more the fires kindle. God, if you really are with me like you say you are, then let me hold my peace and let the Lord fight my battles. I'll let you stop the mouth. I'll let you clear the mind. I'll allow you, God, I will submit and allow you to make it plain. Because if God is with you, you feel that God has blessed you, then you should not be worried about God speaking for you.
Okay. Come on now.
If you know that God is with you, then you should freely be able to say, well, let the Lord stand between me and thee.
Okay. Okay.
Let the Lord choose. If God is truly with you and people don't understand it, then it's all right, because we'll ask the Lord
Come on now.
to make it plain. And if you know he's with you, you can say that with boldness, and you can go home like Moses did and go to sleep and wait for the morning to come. Because you know what you know, and you are putting everything in the hands of the Lord, and you have confidence that God is with you. Even in the time of disagreement, you know, sometimes these things can be painful. And when you know you've been misunderstood, or your heart has been bruised and others can't quite see it, and you know that you're right, then sometimes the debate is not going to ease it. It'll end up into a fight. But if you say, Lord, before men cry, now God, you know that it's not like that. I need you to speak for me and trust me. If you're right, he'll speak for you in a way in which those involved cannot deny the fact that God has spoken. I never forget coming out of service many times as a young country, after being preached on and misjudged. I would walk through the parking lot to the car crying, and never would let my family see this or other young comers. And I would say, God, they're killing me. These folks are killing me. And I'd go home and I'd get in closed doors, and I didn't understand why the elders kept coming down on me. And they would leave me in tears. And then I saw a scripture one day where it said, when the poor man crieth, the Lord heareth. So I would go home and I would cry, Lord, the poor man crieth, they're killing me. I'm trying to hold on, but they're killing me. The poor man crieth. And I prayed that prayer a couple of times. And one time we came to service, and while one of the elders were preaching, he just stopped and started screaming at the top of his head. Eyes closed and his hands up. He kept saying, the tears. I keep seeing his tears. I can't take it. His tears, they keep coming up on me. I can't take the tears. The tears. The Lord showed him in my travail. When the poor man cried, and very different, the Lord saw that my heart was innocent. And he saw they were hurting me. And so I said, Lord, the poor man cried, you judge it. And God went to him in a vision and showed him my anguish and my pain. He couldn't bear it, so he backed off for a season. And my I was amazed at the miraculous hand of God and how the scriptures really come to life when you use them. That's why I tell you, when you think you're been done wrong, you don't always have to defend yourself, and you really think people are really doing you wrong, you just pray from a pure heart because you don't want to strike out, understanding the vengeance of the Lord. You pray from a pure heart. The poor man crying. And if you're really crying from the pain of others, listen, he will hear. And he will speak in your behalf. I feel a virtue. Well, they brought out the rod of Aaron, and there it was, full of life. Judgment went everywhere. Aaron had to stand between the people. The Bible said he stood between the dead and the living to stop the judgment of God. And the people repented. You see, the New Testament, a lot of scriptures in the New Testament are written because of the book of evidence, the law and the prophets. They learn a lot of lessons. And this writing in Corinthians goes along with that story. You see, Korah and the boys and others, they tried to commend themselves. They thought they were pretty good and pretty smart. And they had a few miracles take place, and they could hear the voice of God, and they were known for hearing God. Amen. So listen, some people can't handle the slightest of authority.
Come on, I say that.
It gets to the head quick.
That's right.
It's like someone who is a security guard flashes his bag like he's an Atlanta PD or FBI. You understand what I'm saying?
Come on now.
Whenever you're asking God for strength, for power, for blessings, or whatever it is you're praying for, I learned, always ask him to give you the spirit and the mind and the heart to walk in it so that you can remain humble and blessed. These men got beside themselves because they felt they were pretty strong. Listen, because you got backing and got people that are pat you on the back and agree with you, still doesn't mean you're the one. They had backing, but it meant nothing. Because in all your backing, if God is not backing you up, you've got nothing. So now we see Paul dealing with situations, doubting his apostleship, men rising up at him. Paul was saying, listen, we don't make that mistake. Corinthians 2 and 12 says, we don't make that mistake. We dare not make that mistake of ourselves, of the number, or compare ourselves with some that compare themselves. But they that measure themselves by themselves, comparing themselves amongst themselves, you're not wise. If you just look at the people you're around and talk about how great you are, don't you know the world consists of more people than them?
That's right.
You in your own little corner, you proclaim yourself the best. You're not wise. You're not wise at all. They that compare themselves amongst themselves are not wise.